Okay. Let's see. It's so interesting. It seems like our commissioners are still joining as attendees rather than panelists. So I'm going to go ahead and pull everyone into. Awesome.
No problem.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Independent Redistricting Commission. I'm going to allow a few more minutes while we get a few more commissioners on board. We don't have a quorum yet, so we can't start. So I hope you'll hang in there and your patience is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. I see Commissioner Butler has joined us. Commissioner Lazaretti, and I do believe I saw Commissioner Diaz-Noriega. So I believe we should get the meeting underway, and hopefully more board members will join as we move on. So I am going to start the agenda this evening, moving on to item 1, call our meeting to order. And number 2, Ms. Forrest, would you do a roll call for us?
Absolutely. Commissioner Butler.
Present.
Trustee Area 2. Commissioner Diaz-Noriega.
Present.
Commissioner Tuolu. Commissioner Hilliard. Commission Chair Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Lazaretti.
Here.
Awesome. We do have a quorum, so we will be moving on with tonight's business. As our commissioners join us, we will note that in our meeting. So our next agenda item is our approval of our agenda. Is there any amendments to our agenda this evening, Mr. Pitts?
No, I do not believe so.
Awesome. And Commissioner Butler has just joined the meeting, so I'd like to, oh, sorry, Commissioner Hilliard just joined the meeting. You guys jumped around and switched spaces there. Has just joined the meeting, so I'd like that to be recorded as such.
Yes, I'm present. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. So we're looking at movement to approve the agenda for this evening. Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I motion.
I have a motion to move to approve from Commissioner Hilliard. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
And a second from Commissioner Diaz-Noriega. All in favor, roll call vote.
Commissioner Butler. Commissioner Noriega. I'm sorry. Commissioner Butler.
Yes, I said yes.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Diaz-Noriega.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuolu. Commissioner Hilliard.
Yes.
Commission Chair Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazaretti.
Yes.
So there's unanimous approval on the agenda this evening. Moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes for our last meeting. Are there any amendments to the minutes? If not, I need a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Commissioner Lazaretti. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Butler. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Butler.
Yes.
Commissioner Diaz-Noriega.
Yes.
Commissioner Tuolu. Commissioner Hilliard.
Yes.
Commission Chair Gordon.
Yes.
Commissioner Lazaretti.
Yes.
And the motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 5, our public comments portion. This is for public comment on items not already on our agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit, and we do ask that this relate to our jurisdiction. Is there any public comment at this time, Ms. Forrest?
No public comment at this time.
Moving on to our item 6, our discussion and our possible action items. Item A is an update and discussion regarding selection of the demographer. Mr. Pitts, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do. Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. Pursuant to the vote that was taken at the last meeting, the references were checked for Collingwood Research, who were identified as the first choice for the demographer. Those references came back positively and were provided assurance that Collingwood Research would be able to provide the services that the commission is looking for in a demographer. So we are near the end of the process of finalizing a contract to governing the consulting services to be provided to the commission by the demographer, including in that agreement, working on matters of public outreach through the website, as well as enabling communities to engage with the process and help us identify communities of interest. So we've had a good discussion and are near the point of being ready to finalize that agreement with Collingwood Research.
Fantastic. I did do the calling. I did want to report out that the references did check out. He came very highly recommended. They felt he would do a wonderful job, especially in our area. And so we are moving forward with the contract, and I'm really pleased and hope to see Dr. Collingwood on board as our team at our next meeting. So Dr. Pitts, of course you can be a doctor, a Juris Doctor. Is there anything you need from the board this evening that to help finalize, permission to help finalize, sign the contract, anything from us that we can give you right now so that we can have Lauren Collingwood on board by our next meeting?
If the board were willing to approve my finalization of a contract with Collingwood Research, subject to the chair's confirmation that it includes the provisions governing the services that the commission is seeking from the demographer, I think we could enter into that contract at some point prior to the next meeting, which I think would be helpful, because given the timing, it would be good to get the demographer working as soon as possible.
Can I get consensus from board members to give permission to the board chair, me, to finalize the contract with Mr. Pitts so that we can move this process along? Is there consensus? That thumbs up? There's one, there's two. Commissioner Diaz-Noriega?
Yes.
Yes, there's three. Oh, I see you wrote it in the chat. Okay. So there's 4 consensus. So we're moving forward with that. Awesome. Moving on to our next agenda item.
Should we allow a moment? Should we allow some time for
Public comment? You're right. Sorry, I skipped over that. Thank you. Is there any public comment on our update or discussion regarding the selection of the demographer? Are there any comments from commissioners as well?
We do have a public comment. Mr. Tom Panis, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Panis.
Good evening, Chair Gordon, members of the commission and district staff. I'd just like to thank you for pushing forward on this. I know it's been tough to make these things happen. We had some delays at the beginning of the work that I wish hadn't happened, but I'm impressed with how you're going forward. I'd like to thank our attorney and for his work making sure this happens. And I'd like to thank our proposed demographer for being willing to come on at a somewhat late date in the process. And I think there's going to be some aggressive timelines here. I really just appreciate that. So commissioners, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Mr. Panis. I agree. And I would just like to highlight and point out the extra hours and extra work that Commissioner Hilliard did on all this work. He was stellar and a rock to help us get through this. And we couldn't have done it without him. So I just want to recognize Commissioner Hilliard, your hard work, and thank goodness you're here for us. So we really appreciate you, and Mr. Pitts. So.
Thanks, Vicky. Thank you, other commissioners. Happy to help. And I'm glad we have a demographer now. So we can get into the heavy lifting now. Hopefully it's not as heavy as these initial months have been, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, we should be able to distribute and delegate more of the work, so it'll be less of a time constraint on you all. And again, as you are all volunteers, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you all for volunteering and being here. It's a community service that you are providing, and it's an important community service. So thank you all. Moving on to item B, update and discussion on existing court deadlines. Mr. Pitts, do you have an update for us?
I do, thank you. So as the commissioners are aware, I believe that the first deadline set forth in the stipulated judgment governing the commission's work falls on October 1st, which is this Friday. And given that we are almost completed with the process of selecting a demographer, but have not completed that process, let alone gone far deep into the mapping process, it's unlikely that we will be able to meet the October 1st deadline set forth in the stipulated judgment. I have spoken to both parties to the judgment, the school, the district, and the plaintiff in the Luis Risotto case. And my understanding is that both parties are amenable to modifying the deadlines to allow the commission to perform its work, that neither party has any interest in preventing the commission from moving forward and successfully developing a new trustee area map pursuant to the provisions of the stipulated judgment. And that is the good and most important news, I think, in terms of an update. The parties have not been able yet to reach agreement on the precise way in which that is going to take place. And so there is not a modification of that October 1st deadline in place yet. My advice to the commission in light of that situation would be to, given that the parties do want the commission to perform their work, would be to continue pressing forward with a plan to perform the work that we need to do in terms of public outreach and developing a map, a preliminary map, and gathering public input on that map and various processes. Absent any other change in circumstances that would suggest that that is not the appropriate method, I do think that the parties want us to continue performing our work and to develop the map we've been charged with developing. And I will certainly keep an eye on the process and inform the commissioners if there are any further updates or if any other steps need to be taken to address existing deadlines or any other concerns that have arisen about the commission's jurisdiction and ongoing ability to do its work.
Thank you, Mr. Pitts. Are there questions, comments, concerns from commissioners? Seeing none, I will go to.
I'm sorry, I was a little slow hitting my unmute button, but thanks. Just a quick point of clarification, Mr. Pitts. So do we, as part of it seems like we have a verbal, kind of an oral agreement with all the parties that we're not going to be held strictly to this October 1st deadline, which is not feasible for us to meet. But is it something officially or more formally have to happen on the part of the court to, because I guess one thing that's just popping in my head is down the road, if we do all our work and, proceed, but because of a technical matter that we didn't meet the exact timeline as set forth in the stipulated judgment, if that could create any complications down the road. So I just wanted to see if you can allay any concerns around that, if that makes sense.
I think you're right. I think that there is some minimal risk. I don't think a court would view, those deadlines as somehow invalidating the work that is performed. But I do think that we would like ultimately to see, it would be best for everyone to see a modification of the deadlines incorporated into the judgment itself by the parties' agreement and perhaps through entry of likely through entry of an additional court order. That's what has not yet been agreed upon on how that is going to take place. And so that's what parties are continuing to talk about and have different ideas about the appropriate method of pursuing that formalization. I do think that at the end of the day, it would be good to get that, but I am comforted by knowing that neither party, believes that the commission should stop its work on October 1st, or that the failure to meet that October 1st deadline should somehow invalidate the overall work of the commission, and that leads me to think that we should move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess I understand what you're saying there. I guess the larger concern I just have is that if some party or interest group doesn't like the maps we ultimately agree to, and if they look for a technicality to throw our work, if that could be used as a technicality. So yeah, I don't know the legal ramifications or issues involved here about the process or methodology of getting this extension formalized, but it would be nice before we dive into our work, we have something in writing stipulating that all the parties agree that we were not able to meet that October 1st deadline through no fault of our own, and that everyone agrees that this will not be, I don't know, I guess someone who's not party to these, I guess my concern is that someone who's not party to these conversations that you're having with the particular groups involved in the judgment to try to potentially throw out the maps because they don't like the maps down the road. That's what I'm more concerned about. Does that make sense?
I think that there's a question on whether they could do that, whether they would have legal standing to do that, whether they would, whether that would be meritorious. But I agree, that's the reason that I think as a matter of dotting our I's and crossing our T's, at the end of the day, addressing this issue and precluding any such challenge, whether or not it would have any merit, is in everyone's interest. And I think there is, my understanding from my conversations is that the parties at this point share that interest, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to do so.
Really quickly, Mr. Pitts, what is the next deadline after the October 1st?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I apologize. I can pull it up and find out quickly.
Okay.
While we're getting that information, I do want to
Go ahead.
Oh, I see from the chat. I do want to alert the board that under public comment, I did receive a written comment asked to be read tonight from Scott Rafferty, sent right before the meeting. So I will be reading his note to us, and maybe we can find out some more information on that point. And January 1 says.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to confirm that the next deadline is the January 1st deadline for adoption of a recommended plan by the commission. The approach that the parties have discussed to this point would likely involve a greater flexibility as opposed to necessarily just extending one deadline, the one deadline. But as I think we've discussed before, what I have communicated is that the goal of completing the commission's work by March 1st, which is the most important deadline under state law.
Are there any other questions or concerns or comments from commissioners? Seeing none, I will open it for public comment. Ms. Forrest, if you can turn the 3-minute timer on, I will start reading the written comment from Mr. Rafferty. Commissioners, I have other meetings tonight and may not be able to join you. As my client has said before, we will not allow attorneys for the district to prevent this commission from completing its work in a timely manner and with respect for the time that you have generously volunteered. The district had a duty under stipulation number 11 to give effect to the requirements of the judgment, including establishing this commission with sufficient time and support to complete a preliminary map by October 1st, 2021. Because the district has prevented you from meeting that deadline, an incumbent trustee or any other allies can dispute your map or try to reclaim the board's authority to redistrict. We don't intend to let that happen. The parties agree that Judge Henderson cannot extend that deadline. Therefore, we will enforce the judgment in Superior Court. Its jurisdiction has expired, so a new action will be necessary. We have invited the district to consent to a decree in federal court that will extend your deadline and also continue your jurisdiction until 2032, so that the work you do will be protected until the next census. Scott Rafferty. Thank you. Is there any other further public comment at this time, Ms. Forrest?
Yes, Mr. Panis?
Good evening again, commissioners. As the president of the school board at the time this item was being completed, I played a key role in negotiating the broad outlines of the stipulated agreement and time frame. I'd like to say that this was in early 2019 and none of us were smart enough to realize that there was a major pandemic coming. I think perhaps we wish the district, once we got this process going, the district would have been more cooperative and helping the commission move forward on a more timely basis. But I'm very happy to hear that Mr. Rafferty, on behalf of the plaintiff, has suggested that he is going to give us some grace here, and I'm optimistic that we can come to an agreement regarding those dates. I don't know if the plan is, and I'd be curious to hear if anyone is able to comment on the subject, whether at perhaps the next meeting, there will be a conversation about a proposed schedule, or basically the next time it comes, it's going to be there to adopt. I don't have a strong preference on those. I obviously have a vested interest in seeing this go forward, since I was one of the people who've been pushing on it so hard. And I'll just say once again, I can't thank all the commissioners enough for their hard work and diligence in moving this process forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Panis. Any other public comment this evening, Ms. Forrest? I think we had from the chat that Jonathan Barry Smith wanted to address. Let's get advice from Mr. Pitts. I don't believe he's representing the board at this time. I think he's representing perhaps the ongoing conversation that they're having. Do you believe that it's appropriate for Jonathan Barry Smith to address the commission at this time?
I think probably for the sake of transparency, we should not prohibit anyone who wants to comment during the public comment period from doing so.
I believe so too. And I believe whatever is said in the chat is recorded and posted on our website, so anyone can go and read what is being said and done. All right.
Okay.
We'll hear from Mr. Barry Smith.
Mr. Barry.
Hi, commissioners. I just wanted to quickly state that the district, will take appropriate steps to help the commission meet its timeline. We have no interest in prohibiting the commission from fulfilling its duties doing its work. So I just wanted to make it clear that, you know, the district has been doing what it can and will continue to try to reach agreement to, you know, help modify those timelines for you guys. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Barry Smith. Appreciate that. Is there any other public comment on this item?
No more public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. Moving on to item C, discussion of remote meetings. Mr. Pitts, do you have an update for us?
I do. So as was noted in passing by Commissioner Gordon at the last meeting, the California legislature has enacted a new law signed by the governor that extends the circumstances under which this commission and other entities governed by the Brown Act can meet remotely. So there is not, you know, otherwise there would potentially be a requirement as of October 1st to begin meeting in person in accordance with the rules of the Brown Act, or to follow the teleconferencing or telemeeting provisions of the Brown Act, which are more onerous than the forms of Zoom-based meetings that we have been conducting at this time. And so that the good news is that the new law allows Zoom-based meetings to continue under various circumstances, including for so long as there are county or local social distancing recommendations in place. And the main substantive component for the commission, as long as those conditions are met, is that within 30 days of first relying upon the new law for our meeting, the commission will need to adopt a resolution setting forth various findings to justify continuing to meet via Zoom, as the commission has been doing. So I will monitor that deadline. If assuming that the commission believes that continuing to meet by Zoom is appropriate at that time, the first such meeting under the provisions of the law would be the next meeting. So that'd be our first meeting in October, but we'd have 30 days from that time to adopt the resolution to continue meeting in that mode after that. So I will be monitoring those deadlines and proposing an appropriate resolution for consideration by the commission in advance of that first deadline required by the new act.
Thank you. Questions, comments from commissioners? Thank you for that, Mr. Pitts. It's, I think that the consensus from this commission, and if I'm speaking out of turn, please stop me, my fellow commissioners, but I think we've all found the advantage of Zoom, especially for people who work, who have families, who otherwise could not perhaps find transportation, that it's been a welcome added access for many community members. And I think since our role and our job is community outreach, a big part of it, I think that we've all decided that we will continue to use Zoom to its best and fullest advantage for our community members. Is there any other comments from commissioners? Any public comment?
No public comment.
This is going to be a record meeting, you guys. We're doing it. We're getting it done. Item D, update and discussion from our public outreach group or public outreach. Did you want to
take this or start off? The committee is continuing to really think about how to make sure our process is inclusive and representative of all of our trustee areas. And so I think one of the so we will continue to discuss that. One of the considerations and some of the questions we are working out with Mr. Pitts is around the district's capacity and ability to support our outreach effort and the existing resources that they have to reach out to community members, parents, other key stakeholders. I think the piece that we as a commission have to also discuss is how do we design and direct outreach for the different trustee areas that's aligned with kind of the unique needs and unique constituencies that each of those trustee areas represented. It can't be a one size fits all outreach strategy. And so that is when we will lean on all of our fellow commissioners to really help us think what is the most appropriate process or venues or resources to tap into. And so that's the update that I have now.
Thank you, Commissioner Butler. Well done. We want to thank, of course, Commissioner Hilliard. He has had time constraints and he has stepped down from that commission. We thank him for his role on it. He's been very busy doing other things, so we understand completely how this is a time management thing. And I just want to again put it out there for my fellow commissioners, if anyone would like to volunteer for the outreach group. At this time, I'm willing to step in. I feel as the community member from outside the community, my role is probably not as strong as I'd like it to be. However, I do want to update you under board reports of my outreach for the application process. But at this time, if I'm willing to serve for a while until we find somebody who would like to do it permanently, just to help and brainstorm and be part of it. So is there any other comment on this item? Is there public comment on this item?
No public comment, but I do see Commissioner Tolu, and I am promoting him to panelist.
Awesome. If we could let the minutes or the minutes reflect that Commissioner Tolu has joined us at this time, and welcome. We are actually on item 7, our commissioner reports, updates, and future agenda items. And since I was mentioning the outreach that I did in the above one that I would mention in the reports, if you don't mind, I'll start commissioner outreach or commissioner reports today. I did reach out to John Joya's office for Area 2 applications. He's put it in his update. He sends out a monthly or weekly update, or every other 2 weeks, I think, update. He's put that in there. He'll put it in there until we ask him to take it out. I've reached out to the NAACP, Willie Robinson, and the Latinx group from Maria Alegria, all on the application for Area 2. But I am happy to reach out to those groups again when we do our outreach and continue those conversations. That's all for my updates. I don't have any future agenda items. So that ends my report. Let's start with the first person on my box is Commissioner Lazaretti. Do you have any reports?
Thank you, Commissioner Gordon. No reports from myself. Just a suggestion, echoing what Mr. Panis said in his public comment. I think at the next meeting, assuming we have the contract finalized with Collingwood, we focused in on a schedule to meet the timelines that remain in the stipulated agreement and address whatever concerns may arise about timing, complications that may come up as he begins his work, and so that we can kind of all be on the same page in terms of how we're going to proceed from here on out. So that's basically all I had.
Thank you. Next box is Commissioner Hilliard.
Hi, no comments at this time, and I can't think of any future agenda items other than the ones that were addressed by Commissioner Gordon and Commissioner Lazaretti. Thank you.
Commissioner Diaz-Noriega, you're next.
Thank you. No additions as well.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tolu?
None at this time, but hopefully we will find someone for area too, because it's been vacant for about a month, I believe. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there public comment on this item? I don't think so.
No public comment.
Then we'll move to item 9, and that concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you everyone for attending, and thank you everyone for making this, I think, our quick. Do you have one last update?
Item 8 on the agenda was to the future meeting.
Oh, future meetings. I skipped one out. You're right. Thank you, Mr. Pitts. Our future meeting, it looks like our next meeting will be October 12th. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So mark your calendars. We'll try and get the items on the agenda that we discussed this evening. And we hope to see all of you there. And we're moving on then to item 9, which is adjournment. And again, thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you for a quick and speedy meeting. I think this might be our fastest one so far. And hopefully, other than the community outreach meetings, we'll continue to be respectful of your time and get you in and out as fast as we can. Thank you all for attending. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.